My name's Alastair Humphreys, and for my entire adult life I've been hooked on adventure. As soon as I graduated, I jumped on my bike and set off to cycle around the world. I didn't get home for over 4 years. I cycled 46,000 miles through 60 countries, and since I came home I've rode across the Atlantic Ocean, crossed deserts, looking for adventure, difficult challenges in the world's wild places. Everyone loves adventure. People sit on the internet, reading websites, watching films, thinking, oh, I'd love to do that, I'd love to do that. There are so many things that stop people from rowing across oceans or walking across deserts. And perhaps the biggest one of those is the difficulty of starting, of beginning, of knowing how you even get going in a project as big and as daunting as that. So I thought to myself, what if you make it easy? What if you make it so small, so short on your time, that really there's no excuse not to get started? What if you have a micro-adventure? Adventure is about making the very most of life, because life is short and we don't want to get old and look back and regret all the things that we didn't do. Adventure is more of an attitude than anything else. And if that's true, then surely you can find adventure anywhere. And so to try and prove this point, my friend Rob and I set out to try and do the most boring, mundane adventure we could think of. We loaded on our rucksacks and set off to walk a lap of the M25 motorway. The M25 is the motorway that encircles London. It's a 120-mile traffic jam passing through boring, non-adventurous sounding commuter towns. If you can have an adventure here, you can have an adventure anywhere. Walking around the M25 was my first micro-adventure. I loved it, and right then I decided to commit to a year in my country. Boring, tiny, small little Britain, seeking out adventure close to home, and try and show that you don't need to go to the Yukon or Mongolia to have an adventure. If someone said they were going to cycle across an archipelago of islands in Alaska or the South Pacific, I'd think, wow, that's the kind of adventure that I love. So why not do it close to home? Take the same philosophy of big adventures and just apply it locally. So my friend Joe and I, we set out to cycle the length of the Shetland Isles archipelago, cycling across the land. Then when we reached the water between the islands, we'd inflate pack rafts, paddle across the sea. Not only was this one of the most beautiful places I'd been to in Britain, it was one of the most beautiful camp spots I'd been in the world. Britain is a wild and beautiful country, just like everywhere else. You just have to go and seek it out. But not everyone can drop everything and disappear off to the Highlands of Scotland for a week. Time is the most precious and scarce resource that we have. So I realised that if I wanted to make micro-adventures more accessible, then I had to condense them into a shorter amount of time, perhaps into a weekend. When I was doing this, it was really important to not lose the essence of adventure.
Oh.
I didn't want micro-adventures to be a dilute form of adventure. I wanted them to be a concentrated form, distilled like a shot of espresso. You get the taste, you get the effect, maximum impact in this short, condensed burst of adventure. These micro-adventures I was doing now didn't require complicated planning or lots of logistical faffing around. And I was realising that gradually I was starting now to practice what I preached. These adventures were getting so simple now that even kids could do them. And that was brilliant, because if an adventure was simple enough for a child to do, then really there was no excuse for adults not to be getting out there and doing something fantastic as well. You don't need to live in the wild corners of the country to be able to have an adventure. You don't even need to be in your own country. I had to go to Hong Kong for a couple of days for some speaking work, and the first night the company put me up in a very fancy hotel. It was very nice, fluffy white dressing gown. The second night I had to pay myself. So I checked out the hotel and went and slept on a hill. Slept on a hill looking over the lights of Hong Kong, and it was a brilliant experience, a real micro-adventure. The wilderness is closer than you think, it really is, and it was a great perspective on a different city. And so the concept of micro-adventures works wherever you happen to live. Most of us are defined by the 9-to-5 life, and so I decided to try and flip that round. Instead of being constrained by your 9-to-5, why not flip that in your head and look at the 5-to-9? When you leave work at 5 o'clock-ish until 9 o'clock the next morning, that's 16 hours of freedom to do whatever you want. Instead of heading back home and flopping down in front of the TV, why not try this? Get a bunch of friends, head out of town, and go climb a hill. Watch the sunset, sleep under the stars, and then when you wake up in the morning at sunrise, it's this amazing experience of thinking, wow, I've done something really different. A bit silly, it's less comfortable in your bed, but memorable and different and exciting and adventurous. And all that remains then is to run down the hill, jump in a river for a swim. Jumping in rivers is good for the soul as your morning wash. Back on the train and back at your desk by 9 o'clock the next morning. And then when your boss says to you, "Did you do anything nice last night?" you can say, "Yes, actually, yes I did. Last night I had an adventure, a micro-adventure." Life is now or never. Fill it with adventure, squeeze it, wring out as much as you possibly can from it. Life is this moment. This is it, life, now. Tick tock, tick tock, this is our life. We need to make the most of it, to fill it full of rich, meaningful, rewarding, adventurous experiences. So will you go on a micro-adventure?